Now, one of the things I need to do is to mark on this piece that I'm going to cut for the tails with a starting point, an index point if you please. And that index point is the shoulder of that first tail. Sorry. This block to indicate what I'm doing, but of course you won't have that when you make your first cut. So you see exactly where you would like to position that. That means that what you need to do is have as an index point that point right there. And from your plan, you would mark that on this piece. And you'd mark that right in that corner. And that's where you'd want to set your piece for the index. If you're just a tiny bit off, it will cause the pieces to not fit just exactly right. They will fit this way fine, except that you'll have a little bump here and another one here equal to the little error that you made here, and you could sand that off. So it's a good idea to try to be as precise as possible. Then you place your spacer block, and what we're going to do then is we're going to insert these spacers one after another and move this piece across to cut all those shoulders. You remember we planned those spacers so that we could make these cuts just exactly where we want them. From that plan, not from a model like this, but from the plan, you would have cut all those spacers to go across there. And they're going to be in this order. So now I'm going to number them. And the reason for that is I don't want to mix myself up with the sequence. Now they're numbered, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the first shoulder, and then I'm going to insert the first spacer and cut the second one, and go on through that sequence of 4. I'll do that now. Now we've cut all of those shoulders that match here. And the cuts are in the area of the waist, that is in the area where the pins will be inserted. Now since we made that plan so it's symmetric, all we need to do now is to turn our piece around and make the same cuts, removing a spacer after each cut. Now I've made the cuts for all of the tails, and these areas here are to be removed. They're the waist because that's where the pins will be inserted. Now I'm going to remove that waist so we'll have just the pins and it'll look like this. Now we're going to use our angle block again. I've set the saw blade so that it's vertical. And we will want to set the height of that saw blade to match the requirement for the pins. Now, when you move that blade so that it's vertical, the distance from the peak to the table changes a little bit. It's a little higher. So I check to make sure that I am below the surface. And when I get that below the surface, then I'm done with that part. But then I have to use the angle gauge again, because now I want to cut my pins, and you see I have to set the saw blade, set the miter gauge at an angle so that the shoulders of the pins are at the chosen angle. And the chosen angle is in our angle gauge. Now that sets the angle for one shoulder of a pin. Of course, we have to remember to change this angle when we cut the other side of the pin. Now again, we have to set this so that the starting point is exactly where we want it to be. And I'm showing you on the one I've already done. I want that to cut here because I want to cut out the material that is the waist. This is the waist here. So if I've already cut that, I can set that initial point exactly there. And then I can put my stop block in. And of course the distances are going to be the same as they were for the tails.